This is Rudolf of Germany speaking, chapter 21 of my revelations about the tall white alien race. In the last chapter we spoke about our mining operations on planet Earth. As you by now know, we are mining for emotional energies, which are the essence of all universal appearances, all universal life. Now I want to be a little bit more specific. There are several ways how to extract deep emotional feelings out of creatures like plants, animals, and humans. When it comes to the human level, which we are concerned about right now here on this video, it's suicide. Suicide besides murder, wars, human sacrifice, and another form of intense emotional energy is the way of bliss. Murder, suicides, wars, and human sacrifices are the lower way and the most common way to arouse human emotions. Bliss is a very rare but extremely powerful form of a human emotion and can be only attained by the individual himself. Bliss can only be created by very special people who have the ability of spiritual attainment. Many of these are crossbreeds, hybrids, who are partly tall white, as my race is, and partly human. But then again, in very rare cases, you do have pure humans who are able to create bliss through meditation and special spiritual practices. This form is, as I said, very rare, but people who have these abilities are, of course, very respected even under the tall white alien population. About suicide, I do not have to explain to you anything. What is murder all about? The same. There are many murders going on in this world from people just accidentally, or they are inclined to murder. There is not much to explain either. Wars, as you all know how they happen, there are leaders, political leaders, who are working in our favor in order to gain more power, more influence over the human race. These are the most vicious of all creatures, right next to your priests, who are only interested in gaining power, and they don't care what means they have to use. Then comes the other form. This is the human sacrifice. In order to conduct such a sacrifice, we usually employ a specific group of high priests. In the old days, it was very common to have celebrations and specific days of the year where human sacrifices were the high point of the celebration. On some days, there were some hundreds of people sacrificed from high priests and the so-called chosen ones. There were no victims. They were chosen because of their high intelligence and of their high standing in society. Usually children of the best families have been chosen to become human sacrifices. The fear of the terrible, long-lasting pain before finally death is reached created such an enormous feeling in the people who are supposed to become sacrificed, that this is, besides bliss, besides the form which I talked earlier, is the highest form which creates the most emotional energy which we can use. Such sacrifices were celebrations which took days. You would call them victims, were bathed, cleaned, incense were burned. These so-called victims, or the so-called blessed ones we would call them, were fed good. The family sat around them, and then they were led to the special altar where the celebration took its last part. These high priests usually, and the families who sacrificed one of their loved ones, were especially privileged and chosen for special positions from us as an exchange for the sacrifice. These are the darker means, because I personally would say a human sacrifice, a war, a murder, and a suicide are the easier ways to create emotional energy, and the conductors on the human side who try to please us, the secret societies, for example, and the high priests of temple who knew what we looked for over the thousands of years, they had no other means, these priests, than to give us this kind of energy from the suffering chosen ones. In case of a spiritual enlightening, a bliss situation, you have to do it on an individual basis. I spoke to you about this before. And it's only the individual who is able to create bliss in his spiritual being who can also be enlightened enough to join our ranks eventually. But this is, as I said, the rarer case. Murder and human sacrifices are much easier to conduct than the many years and even decades which you need in order to be able to lift your spirit up to become blissful enough to understand and illuminate yourself. Illumination has nothing to do with these so-called Illuminatis. I distance myself from these kind of people. These are not the kind we are dealing with. We are dealing usually with different groups of also secret societies. So much to this. Please don't try to judge. I'm here to explain things to you as they are since thousands of years, and I do not like to be judged because of my explanations here. I have no positive nor negative feeling to any of that what I'm saying. I'm just trying to educate. My personal preferences are something which is my personal private matter, and I will not discuss it here at all, because this is nothing of anybody's business but my own. I will address, as I said before, later on in another chapter, ways how a decent human being of good will and standing can achieve some spiritual height, can eventually meet also some of us in order to escape the wheel of death, and whatever will happen after I will explain to you. For now this should suffice. This is Rudolf of Germany, and I try to give you as much information as fast as I can, because my time will be up quite soon and I will not be able to speak to you for a longer period of time. Rudolf of Germany.